Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular afternoon council meeting of Monday, August the 23rd. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel at youtube.com, District of Summerland. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available for the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Members of the public may access the meeting or participate in the following ways. Watch the meeting live or recorded, as I just said, on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. Request to speak during the meeting. If you haven't registered in advance but wish to speak during the public comment opportunities, you may connect to the meeting by calling the meeting conference line at 778-907-2071 and entering meeting ID 506-489-9374 and passcode 485186. After I have provided everyone who has pre-registered with an opportunity to comment, the floor will be open to those on the conference line. Corporate Officer, are there any late items to introduce?
There are no late items for this agenda.
Thank you. Council, could we proceed with adopting the agenda, please? Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Holmes, all in favor? Thank you. And adoption of the minutes of August the 9th. Councillor Traynor and Councillor Patton, all in favor? Great. Now on to the first of our two delegations today, Summerland Fall Fair, which is going to be held September the 25th, 2021. And I don't see Thomas, but maybe he's there. Sarah and Denise McDonald will guide us through this. Please go ahead when you're ready.
There. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't seem to hear you very well. Am I loud enough? Yeah. Okay. So Thomas can't make it. He's far too busy with everything that's going on with him. So thank you for having us, the Summerland Fall Fair Society. My name's Denise McDonald and Sarah Senkal and Katie Sardina is here representing us. So it's a small group of volunteers, and everyone's so busy that one of our priorities, our long-term priorities, is to make the fall fair simple and involve other groups, partnerships. Already we have the Arts Council, the museum, the library is interested in doing something. Different community groups, they're all on board. It's not just agriculture, and it's a great opportunity that I think going forward, it's a new vision yet again. We've changed the location from the arena and the curling club to the Main Street, and then we bounced over to Memorial Park. This year we had great plans for Memorial Park, but it's changed yet again because of the health regulations. Just Friday, we were saying, what if? Well, we all went home and here's new regulations. And there's more again today. So things are still evolving. The later date, the end of September, enables us to kind of link in with the Culture Days, which is a national program. I think Doug Holmes mentioned it a couple of years ago. And it makes perfect sense. It is harvest time, and we can do a lot with it. The community can really run with it. So we are considering changing the date to Sunday. Linda Van Alpen has agreed tentatively that we could link in with the farmers market on the Sunday. So things are evolving and nothing is definite. So our committee hasn't met yet since all these changes. Sarah's our vice pres. I don't know if she wants to say anything. And then after, if Sarah says something, then Katie will promote the photo showcase effort that will go ahead no matter what the regulations are. So thank you. Oh, and I forgot, thank you very much for your generous grant in aid that you showed support so early in the year. We wouldn't have gone forward without that support. So thank you again. So go take it off, take control, Sarah, if you like.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't have much to add. Thanks. Denise has been doing a ton of the work over the past few months with, planning for an event in the park. And I think, it was just yesterday that we realized we might need to make some changes. So everything is still very much, not set in stone at this point. But like she said at the beginning, a big focus is how to make an event sort of doable year after year and not have people, kind of burn out from sort of planning something, especially now when things can change so quickly in terms of what we're able to do. So I'm not sure if anyone else, or I guess the councilors might have some questions or input, but that was sort of the latest thing that was discussed. Like she said at the market, was how to maybe kind of combine efforts with something that's already happening and some of the legwork has already been done. And then we can kind of be able to change things kind of more quickly in terms versus having to look into getting fencing and have people counting the numbers going in and out and that sort of thing. Once we started thinking down that road, it didn't seem to make as much sense to hold an event in the park that might not be able to have food trucks or might not be able to have entertainment or zucchini races. So we're just trying to think creatively how we can still put something on in person within regulations that we don't fully know what they are at this point. So that all made sense. So does anyone have, or I don't know if we should go right to Katie at this point and then.
Yeah, I think go
Yes,
to
let's
Katie.
hear from Katie first, and then we'll open
Sounds
it up
good.
for questioning.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Denise and Sarah. So I'm here to talk about and introduce an event which is going to happen regardless because it is inherently social distanced. And the event is being promoted through this poster, which has been sent out to the councilors and will also be seen around town, and we're handing them out as we go. So we are teaming up with the museum this year to put on an event which we are calling the 2021 Summerland Photo Showcase. It's also, you could think of it as a yearbook or various things. But the point is that we are trying to get every single person in Summerland, if we can, to send in photographs, so of yourself or of groups, whatever. Take a picture with together with something that you have grown, baked, made, sewn, carved, whatever. We are basically collecting photographs with captions, optionally, and we're going to compile them into like a yearbook, which will really celebrate the creativity of Summerland, and we'll get to see members of the community. We'll get to see who actually lives here and who we are. And that the photographs will be compiled. They'll be available online for everybody to see, so they'll be accessible that way. We're also going to print them into a book, which will be available at the museum and the library, so that, again, anybody could access them and see them. They will also be for sale at cost or for like a slight fundraiser. We're not sure. But in that way, we're trying to make this maximally accessible. And the point of it is, as I said, to really celebrate the creativity of people in Summerland, celebrate what we've been doing, what we've been achieving in this really weird, hard time. And also to kind of document this moment in history and what's going on. So I'm presenting this information to you now. We are collecting photos all the way up to November 1st. So there's lots and lots of time. We want to promote this all over Summerland. And like I said, we have a very ambitious goal, but we really want as many Summerlanders as possible in this book. So any ideas about how we can help that promotion right now would be appreciated. But yeah, thank you. I think I'll leave it at that.
We can certainly drop off a poster here and we can put it on our bulletin board so that people coming into Municipal Hall can see it. Okay, Council, do you have questions? Councillor Van Olfen and then Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not so much a question, but more of a comment about the photo, the potential book at the end of this all or online. It just goes to show you that even though we're in the midst of a pandemic, farming doesn't stop. You know, our biggest industry in Summerland continues to move forward, even though there is a pandemic out there. So, hats off to all the farmers out there for keeping on, keeping on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. Well, I'd certainly like to thank the Fall Fair Group for trying to pull this off this year. I guess my question is, since we don't really know which way this pandemic is going right now, and do you think that there is a risk that at some point that you think, well, we just can't pull this together? Or is the mindset more that we're going to do something, we're going to work within whatever the regulations are at the time, and have something, and I guess are there points along the way between now and within the next month, I guess, where it looks like it sounds like you're doing this on a shoestring, which is credit to you, but are there points where you think, well, we might have to spend X number of dollars, and we don't know if that risk is worth taking or not? Does that make sense?
Mhm. I can answer that if
Yeah.
you want. Our biggest expense was insurance to date, and that they would reimburse case by case request. So who knows? We probably will have scaled down the event already. No zucchini races probably, because the children are at risk too. So I've been told that the farmers market is considered an essential service. So we may have to make that a pretty essential service with very little entertainment or food trucks. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to phone the health people and talk to Linda Van Alpen. She's got a handle on things. We may, I don't know. I think they're talking about health passports today. So who knows? I mean, I don't think our society would prohibit people from going to buy food just because they don't have a health passport. I don't think, but we'll find out. I don't think it's that bad, but we're trying to be hopeful and optimistic.
Thanks, Denise.
And just to, if I can just add to that, so just to clarify, we were planning an event in the park, but at this point we are likely looking at kind of, if there is something going on, doing a co-event with the farmers market, just so that if something needs to change very last minute, we haven't put all the time and money and effort into organizing in the park, if that makes sense, versus just using it, some space at the farmers market if there is extra space.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
I'm
a
hoping
good
that's clear.
decision.
I know that's a bit confusing and fairly new, but that's sort of, to answer your question, Councillor Holmes, that's how we're looking at being able to make our kind of decision gate, fairly late in the game, by not having too much on the line in terms of, having paid a whole bunch of musical acts or booked all our, vendors. A lot of people haven't committed yet. So aside from the insurance, we don't have a lot that's already been paid for. So.
Okay, Councillor Carlson has a question.
Thank you. Thank you for continuing to pursue this. I think it's very valuable and needs to be maintained. I know it's a lot of work for all of you hardworking farm folks. One of the questions I have is about harvest displays. I know there'd been some conversation about perhaps some sort of scarecrow or harvest display type contest or concept. And I'm wondering if something like that has sort of continued in the conversation, whether we're going to encourage landowners, residents, businesses to put harvest displays in their yards, in their windows, or whether you need some people to step up so that something like that can happen and be organized.
Sarah, or do you want me to speak to it?
You go ahead.
Yeah, we're such a small group of volunteers that we don't have anyone that has picked that one up. So it's up to the businesses and the residents to do it themselves. Teresa Washtalk, I did talk to her this morning, and she's so full of energy and eager beaver. So we'll have our main street decorated, thanks to her, and Richard. Huge effort. So we'll have that, and it's up to the individual to dress up their own businesses or their own driveways, unless someone comes forward to organize that. So
Any more questions, Councillor? All right, I have one question for Councillor Trainer. So your picture maybe could be the baby that you've grown during this pandemic period. Thank you so much for coming forward and bringing us up to date on Fall Fair. And as some of the other councillors have said, and I think that we all agree, it's amazing how you've been able to adapt and continue to adapt. This really is an important celebration for our community that is so agriculturally driven. So thanks again. I know that it's a lot of work.
thank you.
Okay, so if I could have somebody bring forward this report or this delegation information, Councillor Holmes, or sorry, Patton and Councillor Van Elfen, all in favor? Great, thank you. And now we'll go on to delegation, the second delegation today from Ron Kubek, the president of the Summerland Chamber of Commerce, and it's regarding the 2021 Festival of Lights.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you regarding Light Up. I come before you as the president of the Chamber and Tourism Summerland. In 2020, our funding was changed, and part of the funding that we had was for a staff person for Light Up. We were told that the contract was cut and that things would be looked at on a fee-for-service basis. Currently, we're only contracted for tourism services for the Visitor Info Center. Before you, we have our proposal for providing services to enable Light Up 2021, subject to COVID rules. We need to hire a contractor to organize this event who is a former staffer. The money that we had before covered this person. To get the sponsors who donate money, to get the goods to the event, to coordinate with town staff with regards to facilitating the event. Without the request before you, we will not be able to present Light Up 2021 as we do not have the staff, resources, nor the budget to do so. We're requesting $30,000 so that we may move from preliminary planning to actual event organization for an event that is just over 3 months away. I look forward to your questions.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Council, do you have questions of Mr. Kubek today? Councillor Holmes.
Yes, thank you. I have the same, I guess, question I just posed to the Fall Fair people is, with the pandemic, we don't really know which way it's going. We don't know what's going to be like at the end of November. And so, you know, I think there needs to be some recognition of the risk there, and even the possibility that it might not be able to go ahead. And so my question would be is, would you have markers at various points telling us, say, that if we need to cancel or pivot or change something, say by October 15th, it'll cost us X, by November 1st, it'll cost us Y, by November 15th, say it'll cost us Z. And so we have, you know, some certainty on the costs. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. One of the issues that we have before us is it's just 3 months away and there's a huge amount of planning that's needed. We did as much as we could as a volunteer board. And so I think that the single biggest cost is the contractor cost, from you guys. Then the other costs would be things that we would be able to recover, we believe, for next year. So whatever we do this year, we would work with all of our partners, donations, things that we did, that we raised $80,000 the previous year to move it into the new year. It's a very fluid issue. And, even as we speak, there's a press conference with the Premier talking about some of the new rules. So we've thought about it, but we just have to be flexible going forward, but we need to know yes or no on the support so that we can hire the person to, because we don't have that staff person on council or on the chamber board anymore.
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think regardless of regardless of whether or not it goes ahead, the idea of having thousands and thousands of people congregating on 2 streets in our community downtown is a little bit daunting to me. So I can see that this is a big decision that not only the chamber is obviously making, but now that council needs to consider and make, because we've had light up in this town forever and ever, and it's wonderful, but it's also extremely tight spaces. And even though you're outdoors, it doesn't necessarily mean it would be safe. So I don't know what the answer is right now, but the concept is a bit daunting. And I probably, as a mother of unvaccinated children, I wouldn't be attending.
Did you wish to respond to that, Ron?
No, that's fine, Tony.
I have a question that has to do with safety, public safety as well as one about the $30,000 ask. The first one about the public safety is, and I know that this has been done in the past, and I'm going to make the assumption that you have been including the RCMP and the Summerland Fire Department in all of the discussions as you've been moving forward with this proposal?
As in years past, that will be part of the process as we get into the final layout. That is always part of what we're doing. We just need to know if the council support is there or not before we spend any time on anything. So preliminary discussions had happened, I've been told. And so that's why we also changed it in terms of the layout. You'll notice that the layout is Main Street and Victoria Road instead of Memorial Park, which we also hire a private security firm is also hired for that time period as well. So with the security firm works with the RCMP and us in making sure the event comes off safely.
Okay, so as the plans show now, they haven't necessarily been run past our fire department? Is that what you're saying?
As the plans show now, the big change we made was recommendations from them on access and egress in years past and on where they want it to be in years past. So until we know which way we're going, then we'll be having meetings with staff. That would be putting the cart before the horse.
Okay, thank you. And my other question has to do with the 30,000. I just want to get clarity on that. Does the 30,000 include the in-kind contribution that the District of Summerland makes? Or
No,
is
it
this
does
on
not.
top, over and above that?
This is over and above that, simply because the town had made a cash contribution in years past plus an in-kind contribution. When our budget was cut by over 50%, one of the staff members that was there was let go. And so she was the person that we would be bringing back on a short-term contract to work this for the next 3 months.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was wondering if this budget represents a sort of a reduced scale, a reduced scope for, you mentioned you've cut the Memorial Park out. It wasn't always part of it. And we've had huge crowds. I think that it became unnecessarily popular, if that's such a thing. What does this plan entail? Sort of a more, does it more, contemplate a more modest kind of a production for this year?
Yes, Councillor Barkwell, it does contemplate a more modest production in terms of one stage, putting the kids area up at the corner of Victoria Road and Main Street so that the parents can be better in touch with their kids. It also helps out with our traffic logistics and site security from the people that we hired to do this. And it was also taking a look at some of the music events and how we're doing that and working on all of those different areas.
And what about promotion? Are you thinking of scaling back the promotion so we don't get, all sorts of traffic from people who'd come from as far as Vernon and Asuyas for light up and
That was one of the focuses, Councillor Barkwell, of our board, was that the focus was on the 11,400 residents and the businesses within Summerland, and to concentrate on doing light up for those folks, maybe some folks in from Penticton, but it was not, the previous executive director and president had much grander designs in terms of what they wanted to do. We wanted to make something that all of the people in Summerland and all of the businesses in Summerland could be proud of. And I'm not interested in drawing people, as some people were before, from Lake Country or Vernon or even Osoyoos. Our focus is right here. There may be a little spillover from Peachland and Penticton, but it's trying to make an event for the families and the residents and the businesses of Summerland.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Trainer.
Can anybody remind me of what the current restrictions are right now for outdoor events in terms of the number of people that are allowed to go? Does anybody know for certain what it is?
My understanding is that it was 50, but that was actually misspoken, and it's 100 people in an outdoor venue or an outdoor organized
100
event.
people in an
100
outdoor
people.
venue? Okay. I guess my second question would be then, would this plan have to be approved by Interior Health?
We would work with Interior Health as we have done in years past on this and items involving Bottleneck Drive, which I've been involved in before.
Okay. I'm definitely supportive of this event. I love the Festival of Lights. I just don't know how at this point, like I can't see it being pulled off just because of the restrictions and the uncertainty right now. So that's what I'm just trying to wrestle with in my head, is that it is such an important event for our community. I just don't know how we can do it right now. So I don't have an answer, unfortunately.
If I may just correct a statement by a previous council member, just looking at the online restrictions right now, it says no more than 5,000 people or 50% of a seated operating capacity of a place, excluding event staff, which number is greater or present. So those are the latest rules that we got on Saturday in terms of numbers at an event.
Okay, can I just have a quick follow-up to that? So realistically, would you be able to crowd control? Because right now with that event, like people come in from all different angles. And so would you have the capacity to manage that?
That might be an increase in the site security budget. The site security and the logistics are some of our biggest costs. And so we would look at all different ways over the next few months on how to control that. Obviously, the rules are changing even as we speak. So who knows what the rules will be, but we just have to be able to plan. And so we assume, and we can then direct people to come in one area and we can do the crowd control that we need to do at that time.
Okay, and just one final question, if that's okay. And this is just a follow-up on Councillor Holmes' question. At what point would you say over the next 3 months, would you just say like, we can't do this, or we can do it? Like, is there going to be a cutoff point? I'm just wondering how far down the road you go before you just say, it's just not going to happen this year.
That's a great question. We have a board meeting on Thursday to discuss that. And so our biggest cost right now is getting that planning person and planning for the event. Hopefully, unfortunately, if it is canceled, we would be able to use that for 2022. The event is scheduled on the 26th of November, so I'm looking at probably the 1st of November, we would know whether we're going or not. But by then, all of the things have to be in place. We would work hard to ensure that the contracts for any bands or any of the other people that we have would be either refundable or be transferable. Probably most of them would do until 2022.
Okay. Thanks, Ron.
I wish I could give you a great answer on that, but
No, I
owning
know,
a
and it's
winery-
hard from your point of view as well. I completely understand that. It's just that, I mean, it is a big chunk of money, and I'm sure we would all want to spend it if we weren't in COVID right now, but it's just, you don't want to spend that money and then not be able to pull it off. So that's just the concern that I have.
Councillor Carlson?
I don't want to have a debate with Mr. Kubik about what's allowed and what's not, but we do live in interior health, and there are new restrictions that do limit the number of people. We're no longer permitted to the 50% capacity or 5,000 people. That is a limitation based on our location and the vaccination rate. And my understanding is that those regulations are in place till the end of September, which is another month. So hopefully by the end of September, there's some answers to that, and that goes back to being 5,000 people at an organized event. But it is specific to interior region.
I have a question that's related to what Councillor Carlson just said and what Councillor Trainer mentioned in terms of, and I guess what Councillor Barkle was asking about limiting the promotion of the event so we don't have 10,000 people showing up to participate. How do you control the number of people that you let into the event?
I would
If we're
probably
limited still by 5,000. How do you control that?
we'd have to increase the budget for fencing. That would be the issue. And then we run into the problem with the fire department and the police department because they don't want the fencing up so that they can get emergency vehicles through.
Well,
The
that's
challenge
important.
Pardon me?
I said public safety and health and safety is number one for us here.
Yes, ma'am. That's why we work on this. That's why we have it in our budget as a big concern. It's one of those things that it's fluid in terms of how do we move people in there? How do we get people in there? Our promotion will be focused only on Summerland. Does that mean that they're not going to invite their family or friends from everywhere else? I don't know, but we'll be doing everything we can and monitoring it the best that we can. If we have to fence off the whole of downtown just to do the event because Interior Health hasn't changed the rules and as Councillor Carlson said, we're not going to get into a debate because we get different information for the winery. We get different information at the chamber from the BC chamber. So how long it stays on, who knows where it's going to go. That's just a fluid thing that we're stuck with. And when we did the presentation up and got it to Mr. Stat, that was before Friday. So we're just trying to be as flexible as we can as business people in running our businesses and running this event.
I have another question, and it has to do with the statement on the proposal that the district is to hold all applicable event insurances. I don't know if anyone knows that, but perhaps you do, Mr. Kubek. Is that typical? Does the District of Summerland take care of the cost of insurance for an event that's not even ours?
Because the chamber was running the event, Mayor Boot, for the city in the past, I have been told that that's what's been going on in the past. I had to rely on ex-staff member to tell me that situation. So I don't have the exact details, but as we were contracted to run the event for the city in the past years, that's what this is looking at. So this is a fee for service to run the event for you.
Okay, Councillor Trainer.
My question is for the president again. I'm wondering, or actually one of the best things about light up is that all of the businesses on Main Street in Victoria open all their doors and people can go in and out and check them out. I'm wondering if you've surveyed the downtown businesses at all in the last little bit and asked them if they're comfortable with having this kind of event and if it's something that they would be supportive of, given COVID right now.
Councillor Trainer, given that it's Monday and the rules came down midnight on Friday, I can say no, we haven't done a survey over the weekend on that situation. We have talked with businesses, we've talked with Bottleneck Drive about what they wanted to do. But again, these were operating on rules that were put in place just over 48 hours ago. So I think it's unrealistic with us and the limited staff members that we have to do what you're requesting. It will be done, but there's no way to get it done for this morning or for this afternoon, pardon me.
Yeah, no, I wasn't asking if you'd done it over the weekend. I was just wondering if you had a general sense in talking to businesses over the last while, if this is something that they were supportive of.
Businesses are looking for things to bring people back downtown. Between the province's recommendation for no one to travel, between the mask mandates originally up in Lake Country to Peachland, I can tell you how much we've been affected at our winery. I can tell you how much I've been talking to food places, other stores, that their traffic has dropped dramatically. So they're looking at anything to help get people downtown.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you. I'm wondering if the chamber would be open to talking about perhaps a different, safer way of, potentially using funding from the municipality and running a host of Friday afternoon events where less people come, where it's more likely that you can, if you can't go this week, you go next week, where it's not, the risk is lower and potentially the exposure for not the exposure to COVID, just the exposure in general of these businesses would be greater, so that more people over the season would be able to participate and feel safe showing up. So just rethinking the way that we invite people to come and join these businesses and have someone who is able to coordinate that, or has that, or would you rather just focus on one large event like has been done in past?
Thank you, Councillor Carlson, and to all of council. Obviously, the chamber was greeted with this news on Friday, like everybody else. So there's been a lot of discussion, but there hasn't been the time to do anything permanent. We were focused on doing this. We were unaware that what was going to happen happened, and so frankly, if my answers are not to your liking, I apologize. But as you are, and for those of you that do operate businesses, we've had to adjust what we do here at the winery, what other businesses have to do in Summerland. And so we've looked at it. The big draw for Light Up in years past is for families to come down to see the fireworks, to see all the lights lit up. It's very hard to do fireworks every weekend or to bring people downtown or to do that. And then to fight the messages where the province is not encouraging travel. So we're just trying to be as flexible as we can. We believe that the rules will be lifted much sooner than the end of September, but who knows? And we're focusing on moving forward, providing an event for families to come down, for the lights to be turned on, for the fireworks to happen, and for people to start entering into the holiday season and hopefully start thinking about shopping locally to help all of our affected businesses that have been affected since March 16th of 2020.
I guess following up on Councillor Trainer's question about the survey, I can certainly understand, as we all do, that it would be pretty difficult to conduct a survey in just a short period of time. However, I'm wondering if you, as the board, have had the opportunity to review the survey that was done for downtown business owners probably 4 years ago, and it was following Festival of Lights. It frankly, it wasn't particularly favorable. There were a lot of concerns about the number of people that were in stores and the amount of loss that was happening over that single evening. But I'm wondering if you've had the opportunity to, I'm sure it's in the file somewhere, to have a look at that. It will give you a clearer idea, at least 4 years ago, of what the impact might have been.
Yes, thank you. We've looked at that, and we also note that, and as you do, that the world changed since March of 2020. So now there's an increased demand. I get phone calls and emails on a regular basis going, what is the plan for Light Up? What are you going to do to bring people back downtown? How can we get things going again? So yes, we've looked at that, but I think that the change from 4 years ago to now with the devastating losses that many of the businesses have had is a very different situation. I will note that starting in September, the South Interior Economic Trust had a grant program earlier this year that I was successful and able to get a grant, and we have a resource recovery business person starting in September on a 10-month program for Summerland and part of Peachland that is funded by Southern Interior Economic Trust, that will be providing a lot more business information, helping businesses recover, and giving a lot more things that, frankly, before I got involved in the board, that the chamber should have been doing. And so Kristen starts in September. We'll make sure that she gets introduced to council. We've made some changes on a staff point of view in terms of where we're going to be going on a part-time executive director. So all of those surveys, all of the studies, all of those things going forward are a great thing. But again, we are constrained by time, we're constrained by budget, and we're constrained by changing COVID rules. So yes, we've looked at it, and but then we've also had other people that have taken over those businesses since that are looking for more. They're going, we missed Light Up last year. And I think, frankly, for a lot of the businesses that may have been surveyed 4 years ago after not having it last year, have a very different opinion on what they wish to do. They wish to have people back downtown to see that Summerland is alive and that we have some really good businesses downtown and throughout the whole municipality.
Thank you. Just before I go to you, Councillor Van Elfen, I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit further. I'm not sure that maybe there was a bit of a misunderstanding on the question, but Councillor Carlson raised the prospect of having, and I don't think she was thinking of mini Festival of Lights when she was asking this question. You may remember, let's see, I guess it would have been 2019 when people that had downtown retail outlets hosted at least 2, maybe 3 December evening shopping events, and included the folks of Bottleneck Drive, and there were
Sip and shop.
goodies and warm drinks and wine and those kinds of things, and it was a late evening, or a late for Summerland, I guess, evening shop, and I was able to attend one of those, and I'm wondering if that might be considered if the Festival of Lights doesn't go forward. It's just a thought. I think that it's something that Councillor Carlson and at least myself think might be something to entertain.
Thank you, Mayor. What you're referring to is Sip and Shop, and that was done in 2019, and it was planned that the 26th would kick off the Festival of Lights. The 27th, 28th, and 4th and 5th would be a rechanged Bottleneck Drive event, not Light Up the Vine, because we wanted to avoid having been new to the winery business and having our first one in 19 and seeing some of what happened. Both the president, Cam Walker from Lunescence, and I realized that there needed to be some changes. So that would be the Festival of Lights. And then we were looking at the Sip and Shop on the 10th and 11th and 17th and 18th. So we looked at the kickoff on November 26th as what would be almost a month-long series of events or designed to drive traffic downtown, to drive it to the wineries, breweries, distilleries, cideries that are members of All Night Drive, and then the businesses with the sip and shop. So those are all part of our plans. We were just focused on the Festival of Lights now as we were asked to do the presentation.
Good, thank you for that, Ron.
And we were
Councillor
also,
Van Alphen. Oh, sorry,
Mayor
you had
Boot, if
something
I-
else to add?
yeah, one of the things that happened, and and Cam and I are still trying to figure out the best way. In 19, there was a wine beer garden, and as we all remember, it was freezing cold and it wasn't very successful for Ball Neck Drive. There was some discussions with the ability to walk around. I met with the former CAO down in Penticton. I met with Anthony to discuss what they had done there in their parks. Still haven't decided what we're trying to do there, but I think that we're trying to come up with something that makes it more personable. A lot of the shops before the years that you were talking about, before 19, a lot of the shops had alcohol in them for the Festival of Lights. Some liked it, some didn't. So that's just part of our process. But, should the grant be given, then we will be proceeding to sprint for the next 3 months, always with a mind on public health and what we have to do, but always on a mind of how do we best support all of Summerland businesses and keep our residents safe at the same time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to agree with Councillor Carlson. I think there's a different way we could look at this. As a business, and we're running a big business here at the municipality, to spend $30,000 on an event that may or may not happen, and an event that truly we have no control over the amount of people that choose to come here. Even if we tone down the advertising and do all those things, it doesn't mean, we've seen some pretty ridiculous years here with crowds. I don't think this is the year, to gamble on hoping that people aren't going to show up, because if they do, we may not be able to control that. The district, as you had mentioned, Madam Mayor, we're the ones holding the insurance on this event. And that concerns me right in the midst of where we are today with COVID. Yeah, it could change next week and it may not change next week. We don't know that. We could take some of these funds and possibly enhance our downtown core even more with more festive decorations and things, and to encourage our locals and do a campaign to encourage locals to shop downtown, reminding them what these business people have gone through over the last period of time, and to let's look after our own campaign type of shopping. But to gamble on having this Festival of Lights this year, I'm personally, I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't think I could support it. But I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Holmes and Councillor Patton.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the Festival of Lights is one of the great events of the whole Okanagan. And I look forward to the day when it comes back to the way it was. I think we as a council and the chamber together should send that message to the community that, Light Up will be back. But I don't know about the comfort level of either the businesses downtown or our own residents of it being back the way it was this year, and saying that we're going to change it so it's more of a, it doesn't attract these people from out of the community. I don't know if that bodes well for how we then pivot back to the way it was before, when we're able to have a big celebration and a big event. Certainly, if you look at Penticton, they had a mini Peach Fest this year. So I think maybe we should be thinking in terms of a mini light up or a light up light or something like that for this year, a different kind of scaled down sort of thing, rather than thinking in terms of light up as usual, but not really as usual. I really think I think for this year we need to be thinking of the pandemic's still going to be around. The SOEC just canceled a big concert for November. You know, I don't think we're out of the woods yet, and I think we need to plan with that in mind. That's my feeling.
Councillor Patton and then Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've sat around and we've talked about Festival Lights when we were going through the changes that were happening at the Chamber. And we talked about who was going to do it, whether it was going to be the Chamber, it was going to be us. And so the Chamber has taken on the role. They've come to us with, in their plan, they talk about COVID, they talk about what they need to do for protection of our citizens in regards to crowd control, in regards to securities. We're talking 3 months away. And the thing that, when I look at what was presented, is that there's a great deal of planning that has to go through. And if it's going to be a downsized version of Festival of Lights, then I believe that is something that the Chamber of Commerce can come back to us and say, after they've had their board meeting on Thursday, and they could come back to us and say, okay, it's not going to be as grand as it was, but this is what we're going to do. Maybe it'll be on, like Councillor Holmes indicated, a mini Peach Fest. But unless they know that they have our support on moving forward, then how can they proceed? So I guess mine is I'm willing to support the Chamber, because I feel that what they're doing is in the best interest of Summerland. And if there's ways that we can do it better and smaller, then I'm for it. But here's a group that is willing to take on the challenge, and I say we let them take on the challenge. So anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Patton. Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the Festival of Lights could be Freedom from COVID Day or something, but there's just no guarantee. I've been way too optimistic in the past. And, and after listening to what everybody's had to say, and related to my very opening comments on whether it's scaled down, I don't think it's scaled down enough. I think that we should, and the only way you'd scale it down is by removing activities and costs and such. And so if, combine that with $30,000 and how that could maybe be spent in other ways, such as the weekly Friday night promotions, which I attended and I thought were kind of good. I just can't really support the amount of money and the scale that we have right now. And I put that in also in relation to say how much support we give for the the Fall Fair and Action Festival and things like that. It's not quite there for me here with this plan.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's not quite scaled down. I see what the plans are. I see thousands of people coming into the community for this. And I would be very happy to hear what, after their Thursday board meeting, if they came back to us with something smaller scale for this year. And even if they want some sort of 2-year commitment so that for next year that we can think about going big, I'd be welcome to hear that. I just want to make a comment about, we heard Mr. Kubek say today how the district had cut the chamber's contract by 50%, and I've heard him talk about that in the past. And so I just like to make it clear that the previous fee-for-service contract that ran from 2015 to 2020, it was a mishmash of all kinds of unrelated services and activities. And when it came time to renew that contract, everyone around the table agreed that we should separate these different things out. And so the new fee-for-service contract for $110,000 a year, which was negotiated in good faith, it covered only destination marketing, tourist promotion, visitors information service. And that was very clear that that's what it was for. And there was an understanding at the time that financial support for other things would be addressed separately through whatever process was most appropriate for that particular activity. And Light Up was one of those activities, and that's why Mr. Kubek's here today, and I thank him for that. But so to hear constantly that draconian cuts have been made, that we've cut the budget by 50%, that's really misleading, because that's not the case. It's we've separated these things out. And so
We need to think a little bit more about it.
So I hope.
Excuse me just a sec. Denise McDonald, could you mute yourself, please?
So I hope whatever we come up with to support Festival of Light moving forward, we're not going to have the president of the chamber turning around and saying that we've cut their budget, we've cut the Light Up budget, and we're not supporting the event. So that's why we're not able to do what we want to do. Because I'm really fed up with the misinformation that's being spread from the chamber about our support. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Any other questions for Mr. Kubek? Okay, I guess I have one more question, and that is, typically we received a presentation from a delegation for information. Is that what you're looking for from us today, or are you looking for something else, Mr. Kubek?
I'm just wondering what council wishes us to do. As Councillor Holmes said, the change in the contract was a fee for service. We were asked for a presentation for the Festival of Lights by the CAO, and you have that before you. If council does not wish to proceed with Festival of Lights this year, that's not an issue. We were just doing what we were asked to do.
Councillor Traynor and then Councillor Carlson.
So I would be in support of some kind of event, but I'm wondering, with your meeting coming up on Thursday and the new regulations that have come in and us not knowing when they're going to change, would you be willing to go back on Thursday and maybe come up with like some new options for us? So whether we do like a week, or whether you guys decide to organize like a couple weekly, Friday night events, or a scaled down version of that, and then come back to us as soon as possible. That might give us a little bit more to look at here, because what you've got here, and I completely understand why you put this together before things kind of took off like they did over the last couple of days. So I'm wondering if you'd be willing to do that with your board, because I would be in support of something, just not what I have right in front of me. So I'd like to see some more options.
If council's wishes to reject this proposal, then we will talk about it at the board and what else we can do, and we will go with we will see what we can do, Councillor Traynor, to come back with something for you that would make all of council happy.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to, I guess it's a question for the CAO. When it comes to the work and the effort that the district staff put into lighting up the town with stringing of lights and making sure that the Christmas trees that, I believe that those are done through sort of partnerships with Arts Council and other folks. I'm just wondering, regardless of the status of the Festival of Lights, does the district have in the work plan sort of a timeline and an expectation to get everything lit up in anticipation of the season going forward this year? And do we have more lights coming? Can we increase our festive appeal downtown in a way that would be supportive of our community?
Thank you, Councillor Carlson, through the mayor. I don't know about the part on if we have more lights coming, so I'll have to check in on that, but I do know it's within our planning horizon to do our proper and regular festival, or rather Christmas sort of light up activities along the boulevards and efforts to beautify the downtown area with lights and other things. So that's certainly still in the works. I just know a lot of those plans in the past, obviously with the light up and the Festival of Lights concept, we'll do joint planning through the events planning process with our teams to determine how and when and who. But regardless of this particular event goes in some way, we'll have our own efforts there.
Another one, since I see our fire chief is in the room, I know that back, it's probably almost 20 years ago now, the fireworks used to be off the top of Giant's Head Mountain. I'm wondering, other than the high school field, are there any places in Summerland that would be safe, that would discourage gathering of people, but encourage and allow fireworks to happen? I don't know if you can answer that right now, but maybe you know of something.
Councillor Carlson, through the mayor. You're correct. We did shoot them off Giant's Head in the past, and for various reasons that was stopped. We had problems with the pool liners having holes burnt in them from the fallout, and just even in the fall and the winter, the risk of a fire up there is still pretty extreme. So it's difficult. We've proposed Dale Meadows in the past, both for Action Fest and for Light Up, but the intent usually is to have the visitors in the downtown core, so it's a challenge. I mean, obviously along the lakefront would be a good location as well, or out on a barge, but again, that reduces that atmosphere of the people being downtown.
Thank you, that's helpful. I know that something like that would be quite a lot of fun, but we do want to discourage those large congregations potentially, so maybe that's not going to work.
It's my thought, are there any other questions or comments? I'm just going to direct my question to you, Corporate Officer. It's my feeling anyways that we should probably have a resolution come onto the floor. Yes. Okay. Is there anyone that would like to make a resolution, bring something forward, make a motion? Councillor Holmes, thank you.
Well, I'm not sure how to word it, so maybe the corporate officer can provide some assistance.
She's
but-
here to help.
Yeah, so, but basically I would like to make some motion that we would be interested in hearing back from the chamber of providing a scaled down, some sort of scaled down event for this year. I don't know how you word that, but that's, I certainly like to see something that's just, kind of just for the community, kind of a mini festival where we flick the switch. You maybe not have the big stage, nothing that, attracts people from all over the valley for this year, but certainly something to kick off the Christmas season would be nice and probably doable. And so how you put all that word into a motion, I have no idea.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes, to the mayor. We could word it that we could say that council requests the Chamber of Commerce to present alternative events to the Light Up Festival to adhere to the current public health orders and guidelines.
Yeah, the problem is it's not really the current, because we don't know what we don't really know. It's not so much what the guidelines are. I think COVID has been here for a while, and it is changing all the time, and we have no idea where it's going. It's more of what is our community comfortable with, I'd say, so pinning it to some guidelines which we don't really. Well, the current ones are irrelevant because it's the end of November guidelines that are important, and we don't know what the November guidelines are going to be. So it's more of what are we comfortable with, I think, is what we should kind of frame it. Maybe
You have a suggestion about the,
Well, my
Motion?
suggestion would be to engage Interior Health to find out, if we're not talking about necessarily the current guidelines, maybe can be an assumption made that the guidelines we were under until Friday would be ones that should be met. So I understand that public and organized events outdoors are different than indoors. Concerts are different. Will an event like this require the brand new vaccine proof? These are things that I think if this event's going to go forward, regardless, I think Interior Health should be engaged just at a very basic level to find out what types of things should the organizers be aware of before organizing, because maybe that will be the deal breaker as it is. Maybe it will be so difficult that it won't be possible to go ahead, or maybe it won't be. And I would suggest that Interior Health would be more useful to engage than anyone else.
Ron, I see you turned your video off, but your sound, your mic is still on. Did you wish to comment on that?
Yeah, I understand where Councilor Carlson is doing, but that's like trying to play darts blindfolded, trying to figure out what Interior Health is. We did talk to Interior Health. We do talk to people on a regular basis. We didn't know the rules were changing on Friday, neither did anyone else in the room that I believe I'm talking to. So as Councillor Holmes said, who knows what the rules are going to be in November? We can do our best to come back to you, but who knows what the rules are with the passports? Are they going to be what they've just proposed? Are they going to be different? Because then passports are going to be required for this event. So it's frustrating because I understand where you guys are coming from, but you're also expecting us to have all of the answers on something that was done on Friday. We do talk to lots of people to get input as business people. So, if council doesn't want to do this and they want us to give us a scaled back thing, great. I'll talk to the board and do the best job that I can. But engaging Interior Health right now, they don't even know what the rules are going to be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ron. Kendra, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we could write it that council requests the Chamber of Commerce to present alternative reduced events for the 2021 season.
Alternative Festival of Lights events?
Alternative reduced events, or we could word it alternative reduced Festival of Life.
I think Festival of Lights needs to be in there.
Okay.
Okay. So if you could read that one more time, and then we'll get a seconder, and then we can get it on the floor.
Sure. So that council requests the Chamber of Commerce to present alternative reduced Festival of Lights events for the 2021 season.
Perfect, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Van Elfen. Okay, council discussion. Is there any further discussion on this before we vote? All three at once. So I'll start with Councillor Barkle, then Patton, and then Trainer.
Just sort of on a more philosophical note, excuse me, I made a few inquiries, and Festival of Lights was started when a group of downtown merchants got together, Bruce and Jerry Hallquist, Al Fabi, Ed Sewell, and they said they'd give someone $500 to help get things organized and sell lights, I think at $1 a piece to initiate this project. And it sort of morphed from there to wind up becoming not a downtown business association type of an event, but the Chamber of Commerce had to take it on. And from there, the Chamber of Commerce is sort of passing it on to the district as a taxpayer funded event. And it raises the question in my mind is, well, where does the taxpayers of Summerland draw the line as far as promotion of downtown events, which are really more the purview of the Downtown Business Association, which we don't have. So while it is a community event and we try to support those, there's a limit. And just toss that one out there, you know, there's a philosophical question and how much and in what ways we support this. Usually it's more like of in kind, all the extra work that staff have to do, putting up barriers, taking down barriers, electrical connections and stuff.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I guess my question is, if the Chamber of Commerce Board meets on Thursday, will they be able to have council time at the next council meeting to present their findings or what they determine? Because time is running short, and I don't want to be the wheel in the cog that they get everything together and then it comes to our table and, oh, sorry, but you can't get in front of council for another month. I think that if we're going to direct council in this way, I think we have to have a priority to them when they come back to us, that we will be able to discuss their next proposition to us in a timely manner. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask Graham to speak to the rollout of our next couple of meetings, because there is a time lag.
Yeah, our next meeting, our next scheduled meeting, regularly scheduled program, as it were, is September 27th because of UBCM meeting. So if in fact the chamber were to contemplate council's request, I think initially what we could get is, if Mr. Kubek would be amenable to this, maybe just an email or letter regarding the decision of chamber, if they're willing to make any of that accommodation. And then if that letter does include some potential options, one option for council would be to have a quick special meeting in order to make that one single decision, in order to give some runway for the planning of the event necessary to be successful.
Okay. Before I go to you, Councillor Carlson, it's Council Trainer had her hand up.
Sure. I'll be supporting this motion. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the chamber comes back with, like whether it's like a scaled down option or like I mentioned before, a couple events held over Fridays in November and December. I just wanted to say that I think that it's important that the district and the chamber be on the same team for this. Like, you know, this is an event that we're all really proud of, and COVID's come in and we're all faced with a challenge, and nobody wants to cancel events, but we have to, and that's what we have to deal with right now. And so, you know, this is something that we should all get behind and be supportive of together and come up with a solution that works, because our main goal is to keep everybody safe. Like, that's our top priority. And I think that we can find something that works. So I'm hopeful that the chamber can bring us back some ideas that we can discuss, and that we can move forward with something that still celebrates the season, but that we feel comfortable with, that council feels comfortable with, that the chamber does, and that the businesses downtown do as well. And residents.
Councillor Carlson and then Councillor Holmes.
I agree with Councillor Trainer. I do think that we should and can support the chamber to do something that's going to encourage folks to go downtown, especially during the holiday season. We just had a presentation from the fall fair. That's going to encourage people to go downtown because they're hoping that there'll be some decorations, right? We go from one seasonal into another seasonal, and people, we need to make sure people know that. And I think the chamber has a big role in making that happen. And the financial support that we provide could be very impactful in how that rolls out. So I look forward to hearing what the chamber brings back that will encourage us to support our local businesses and our local community.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, just following up on Councillor Trainer, I think if before it comes back to us, if the chamber could with Graham and the staff to make sure that anything that's proposing would be a workable solution. And that way, I think, rather than us wondering what staff is thinking, we could know what staff is thinking as well when we came back. So.
Okay, I see him nodding his head. Councillor Barkwell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question for Mr. Kubik. He'd mentioned earlier that they'd received funding to hire a staff person for, I don't know, nearly a year. Would it be possible to make the organization of the Festival of Lights part of the responsibilities of that staff member instead of an additional 22,500, which looks like to be the number for, the coordinator here?
Madam Mayor, due to the fact that you have a motion on the floor, I'm unable to answer Councilor Barkwell's question.
Then I'll make it a rhetorical question.
I will ask again if there's any further discussion on this before we vote. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we just discussed through our CAO, that we may have a special meeting in regards to this to bring forward. Can the motion be amended to indicate that? Or does it need to be amended to indicate that we will meet outside of or have a special called meeting? No? Okay, thank you.
I am certainly in favor of having a scaled down event, as some of the other councillors have spoken to. I'll also say, though, that I am not in favor of a $30,000 ask of the district residents on top of the in-kind contribution already made by the district, on top of carrying the insurance for an event that might not be able to be run anyways. So that's certainly in favor of it, but not at those terms. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll support the motion that's on the floor also, and I hope that it'll be a much scaled down event, more focused towards our local residents and the business community. And I'm hoping that the chamber will also be able to include other businesses in Summerland that may not be located just in our downtown core, but up in our industrial parks. Maybe they have some type of Christmas specials that they're looking at, and to try to include in the entire business community. Also, what was that movie filmed here? I think it was Hallmark, Christmas in July. Is that the movie name? Do you remember, Madam Mayor?
There was one called Yuletide Blog or something like that. And the other one, I don't remember the name of the other one. There was some
Christmas in July, it solves everything. Sorry.
All right, if there's no further discussion, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you for your presentation this afternoon, Mr. Kubek, and we'll hear back from you soon. Next item up is 6.1, and that gives the public opportunity to comment. Is there anybody on the line?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is no registered members of the public to speak. However, there is a number on the line. We're unsure if they're here for the public comment.
Okay. So I can see a telephone symbol on the Zoom screen in front of council. Could you please identify yourself and let us know if you wish to speak at this public comment opportunity?
Hi, Madam Mayor. It's Renee Bielek. I'm just
Ah,
listening in, so that may be my number showing up.
thank you very much. Thank you for
Okay.
joining us, Renee. Okay, so I guess the answer is no to 6, so we'll get on to 7. We are about almost an hour behind time, so we'll scoot along with this. And that is 7.1 is the Water Emergency Response Policy Report. And Jeremy, I believe CAO is going to open this one.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'll start out and then turn it over to Mr. Storvold. So in the end of June, our treatment plant was experiencing a very high spike in demand due to irrigation pressures as well as residential use because of the heat wave. With equipment failing at the plant due to overexertion, decisions were made by staff in those emergent moments to curtail some agricultural use for a short period in favor of avoiding a boil water advisory for the whole community. These decisions are hard decisions, especially when they occur after hours and there are no win-win options available. We strive for a continuous improvement approach to our operations and desire to learn through events such as these and be even more prepared for any similar future events. For this reason, we have conducted a short after-action review recently, which has identified a few policy gaps that we should aim to resolve before the next growing season. I appreciate the work of our water management staff in the district and their focus on this specific series of events and how we can learn from them. With that, I'll turn it over to our Director of Utilities for further discussion on this report and our recommendations to Council.
Thank you, CAO Stat. That was an excellent summary. Hello, Council. Council, in the week following June 27th, I spent quite a bit of time with our staff discussing how the heat wave affected our water treatment plant facility. Coincidentally, this was the same week that I took responsibility of the water utility as a new Director of Utilities. And I felt like this gave me a good outside perspective on the events that occurred that day, the week prior. And I noticed a few themes from talking to our staff and through the action after action meeting. And one was our past practice. And in the decades since the water treatment plant was commissioned, as council knows, that treatment plant was not designed to handle the flows of the entire system. And that separation was planned for future years. But as we hit that design capacity, in the past, we've turned off users or we've opened the bypass line and we've gone to boil water. So there has been some mixed past practice. I also noticed that some of our documentation does need some improvements or some minor changes. And as the report says, there are some gaps. And as I dug into the drought management plan, the water bylaw, available policies, customer lists, there was no standard operating procedure for this specific contingency. And so some updates required there. The other thing that I'd like to mention is just the expertise and knowledge that our dedicated staff have in the water utility. I spent quite a bit of time with them, and we're very lucky to have that team in the water utility. They're very knowledgeable, very dedicated, and no matter what I ask them in terms of questions, they have an answer for it. So excellent group. And what we're looking for here from council is for your discussion around the issue. So we can take some notes on that and some direction. And we're asking that council direct staff to close some of the policy gaps by the way of creating a water emergency response policy that we can use as a standard operating procedure for this contingency.
Thank you, Jeremy. Council, do you have questions of Jeremy? Councillor Carlson and then Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you for that. My first question, this is interesting because I had quite a few people contact me after their water been turned off, and none of them were very happy. Most of them use automated timers and systems that run at certain times of the day or night, certain times of the week, and so this impacted them quite a bit. But my question is, if you just right now today were to go to one of the blue irrigation boxes and had to turn it off in an emergency situation, how do you know whose box that is, and how do you contact that person? Is it the landowner that gets contacted, or is it the actual person that is farming that land? Because I think that might be, I think that's kind of where it begins. If you're going to turn something off, there should be a contact information readily available. So I don't know if that exists, but maybe you do.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, through the mayor, we have a variety of lists for the landowners, the leasees of the land, who are potentially the actual individuals who are growing produce there. Our information on them is hit and miss. And so generally, we're looking at who owns the land and the contact information we have on file for them. And so that makes it, that's one of the customer lists, that's one of the documentation gaps that we need to fill in, and who to contact and what their information is, and maybe a system, an IT solution for contacting them. So we recognize that is an area that needs some attention. It does complicate the issue.
Can I put an idea forward? We've done this on a few, we lease a lot of properties, and there are certain years or certain times where we've actually put contact information on a blue box. Is it possible that inside, when those boxes are turned on for the year, the district can put a phone number in there or an email address? I don't know. That was my first thought. If it was 10 p.m. and I got a text message from the district to tell me my water is off, I'd appreciate that better than at 10 a.m. when I get a phone call from the landowner. So that would be my first suggestion. Thank you.
Councillor Van Alphen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question through to our director and possibly our CAO. Do you think that the water committee membership may have some say in this, or would you even be concerned of the water committee's opinion? And meanwhile, our water committee's been defunct for I don't know how long, and it seems like a very large policy. And I think our farming community and the water committee should have a say in this. We have other committees throughout our community that have say in other things that go on. And I'd like to see our water committee reinstated prior to this going forward. Thank you.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Alphen. So it is certainly something that has fleeted across my mind as well. We're going to have to take a look at that membership. If ever there was a time to reinstitute their sage advice, it would be on a policy matter such as this. So I don't think council has ever shut down that committee. I think it's just been sort of an abeyance so we can reactivate it. And the other, when you talk about the agricultural interests, I think this would be something we definitely want to get the wisdom from the Agricultural Advisory Committee as well. And before we come back to council, what we would be endeavoring to do is to collect and understand their wisdom and be able to inform our policy that ultimately might come back to council in the timeline we're proposing, which is February 2022.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Van Alphen. Councillor Holmes.
Yes, thank you. Certainly a drought management plan makes sense. I think we're going to have more of these kind of situations into the future, not fewer. But looking, I guess, longer term, what is the long-term solution, and it is twinning our lines still that vision, in which case I wonder if we, in terms of getting project funding to do that, we haven't been successful recently getting government funding for twinning, not since Garnet Valley. And so maybe we should look at that again and how we're approaching it. And maybe rather on a project by project basis, we should be thinking in terms of how do we twin all, all the lines, and like have a grander twinning project, and that we can, that includes everything, and that, then it's a huge scale, but we might be able to chip away at it. With government in that respect, I think it might make higher levels of government see how big of an issue it is for us, rather than just, if we just go there with the Giant's Head Road and we want to include a twinning in that, it doesn't really hit home how big of an issue it is for the community. But if we looked at what would it cost to do everything we need to do, then that would hit home a little bit more. Just an idea.
Councillor Van Elfen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just following up on Councillor Holmes's comments there. So if, I think the last number was 8 million, 9 million, whatever it is today, to redo Giant's Head Road and twin the water system and fix all the underground and then repave. If that project was, let's say, done and that water system was twinned, would have had to do what we did, going and shutting people off? Like, I'm just, I wonder if we've done the math on that. And I'm just curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, through the mayor. I have asked that question, and I can say that verbally from staff that they seem to believe that that is the case, that would have prevented that particular occurrence. Would it help us in other years? Probably as well. But I haven't done the analysis on that to say for certain. I have that verbally through discussion, but so I can't say for certain at this meeting that is the case. But that is something we'll certainly be looking at and seeing what benefit that would provide. I know Giant's Head is sort of the first on the list for separation and from what I'm hearing from staff.
Councillor Barquin?
I'll just state here what I think is stating the obvious. When we got the grant for the separation of Garnet Valley, it was on the basis of improving the water system, not repaving the road or the infrastructure or anything like that. And if we'd had a boil water advisory because we didn't have the capacity to treat enough water for the community, then that would have been support for a grant application for twinning the lines, which apparently would, if that had been done, or when it gets done, would solve the problem. And the second part, I think, is that it is essential that we involve the growers in any, it's not really a drought, well, there's a drought management plan, but this is different. This is a capacity reduction or a capacity limitation plan. And those that are going to be affected are going to be unhappy regardless. So if they at least have a say in the decision of how that is going to be made, the policy behind it, then they're a little bit less unhappy. So I would say that the involving a reconstituted or reinvigorated water committee would be essential here in this process.
Okay, I think that's loud and clear. Thank you. Councillor, that was Councillor Burkwell. Any other questions of Jeremy? Okay, could I ask someone to bring forward the staff recommendation, please, or something else? Councillor Holmes, thank you.
That staff be directed to create a water emergency response policy for use during times of water shortages, storage shortages, and water treatment plant emergencies, and that staff bring this policy back to council for review by February 2022. Thank you.
And do we need something in there about the Water Advisory Committee? What's your thought on that, Kendra?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So usually when a policy is drafted, it would go through all the internal processes and procedures. And that to me would be one that we would follow at a staff operational level.
Okay, so then it will come out of abeyance and then go through that process. Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Barkwell? And further discussion? Councillor Barkwell.
In the motion, I would have proposed, if Councillor Holmes hadn't beat me to it, I would have made it explicit in the motion that we consult with the Water Advisory Policy Committee. But since we have that implicit assurance from staff, then I'm comfortable with that.
I just have something to ask about the motion itself. And for use during times of water storage shortages, I don't think that was, a consideration in this. It was the potential for catastrophic failure at the water treatment plant, which is what I was understanding. It had nothing to do with our water capacity, water storage capacity. I'm not sure why that would be in the motion that's forward.
I can take a crack at that, Madam Mayor. And as you know, as I know you see in the motion, we do speak to the water treatment plant emergencies in the second order of business of that sentence. But when we talk about shortages, that it can be a shortage. So when the broader water umbrella we're talking about needs to be revisited. The water treatment side of the equation, because we can be suddenly surprised by a spike in demand and hot weather that drives us to need to make amendments to distribution. The other side of it obviously is the supply side, which we're more acquainted with through the drought management plan. But as the report indicates, even in the drought management plan, it'll say something like we need to do a 10% usage reduction, but it doesn't actually say how we would achieve that. So we also want to explore, so there's a similar process and similar priority discussions and similar application of the policy, whether it's being driven by on the supply side for what's in the reservoir due to a drought, or through the plant. If we have to do a reduction, who gets turned off first, or who would we approach for a voluntary reduction, or what's the priority? So it's sort of it's revisiting elements of the drought management plan as well for greater clarity, and making sure those have alignment to the piece of policy that we want to build, which is the treatment facility, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's something that Councillor Barkwell just spoke upon, and that was the boil water notices. Do we, for future grant funding, we do have on record the amount and the dates in regards to the boil water notices, because it makes what Councillor Barkwell was just discussing makes perfect sense, that if we can prove through a grant application that we've had these significant number of boil water scenarios, it might really help us in enhancing getting a grant for getting those upgrades done on Giant's Head. Thank you.
Councillor Barkwell.
Following up on that, just about as strong of a argument in favor is the event that happened, when was it, in late June? Just throwing those numbers into an application and saying we were faced with that decision is just about as good.
Okay, so we'll get back to the thing that's on the floor here. And I will, unless there's further discussion about this policy. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Let's see, an hour and 20 minutes. Let's do 7.2 Code of Ethics for employees of the District of Summerland. And I don't see it in the agenda, but we'll take a few minute break just after this item.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. So I'll speak to this item. I am pleased to present the final Code of Ethics for employees of the district. The code underscores our commitment to being a values-based organization. It is built on the foundation of the good practices and behaviors of staff every single day, and it codifies these good practices for the organization into our future. The terms defined in the document are as follows: transparency, respect, honesty, stewardship, creativity. 4 of these align with Council's own published values, with stewardship being the additional term, as it was added in after conversations with staff identified a need to reflect the high calling of managing public lands, assets, and money in the course of public service duties. The document was assembled over many months and changed many times through the 13 drafts which preceded this final version. The senior management team created the first draft version of the document for discussion, but it was evolved through discussions led by the senior management team with all staff, but also through individual meetings with smaller work groups and their managers, as well as individual comments received from staff. I also want to point out that the Code of Ethics is not, nor is intended to be, a code of conduct. A code of conduct is a detailed rules-based document, often associated with the work of boards, and which details out specific expectations, prohibits certain activities, and sometimes includes punitive action that can result from its breach. In contrast, this document outlines principles that our organization is committed to, and the behaviors and personal accountabilities associated with those principles. Simply put, the specific job each employee does defines what is done each day, but this code of ethics defines how that work will be done. The document has been distributed to all staff through email, but further rollout activities will include the production of hardback signs that will be posted in our public service areas, adding the values to the back of our business cards when new orders are made, and also including the values in the email signatures of staff. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions, Council? Councilor Barkle.
Not so much a question as a comment. I think that, what was that? The part that really strikes me with this is the shortest sentence in the whole thing. I serve the people of Summerland with pride. When you can do that, when you do that, you really get job satisfaction, and everybody's proud. It just sums it up so nicely.
Thank you, Councilor Barkle. Anyone else? Okay. Would there be any, okay, go ahead, Councilor Barkle. Oh, I just want to ask a question. Although we heard from CAO Stat about the difference between a code of ethics and a code of conduct, I know that Council is well aware that UBCM has created a model code of conduct, and they are strongly recommending that every municipality and regional district have a code of conduct in place before the 2022 fall election, for the next local election. Is there an appetite on this council not to have it done before Christmas or anything like that, to look at something like that for the District of Summerland Council? Any comments? Councillor Van Elfen.
I don't have a problem with it.
Thanks. Anybody else like to weigh in? Councillor Carlson.
I do think that it would be worth having a conversation and see what the UBCM recommendation is, and if there's something that we can have a look at and perhaps move forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? So is this something that maybe we can have the opportunity to look at as a council and explore further sometime in the new year? Would there be interest in that? Councillor Traynor? Okay, I'm seeing Councillor Holmes nod his head. Okay. Do you need any direction? You need a resolution? Okay. Is there anyone that would like to bring forward a resolution? Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, that we instruct staff to look into or having a meeting that we can come up with a code of conduct sometime in the new year.
At least to have the initial discussions around that and a good conversation.
Conversation.
Yes, thank you. And I'll give you a minute, Kendra, and then I'll ask you to read it back.
Thank you. So it would be that staff be directed to draft a report for council consideration regarding a council code of conduct to be brought back by January 2022.
That sound good, Councillor Van Elfen? Okay, secondary, you're seconding Councillor Holmes?
Just to clarify, by January, do we want to be that prescriptive? I just don't want to burden things on staff, you know?
Thank you, Councillor Holmes, through the mayor. Really, that's up for council's discretion on when you would like to see it. It would be nice to maybe put a timeline so it doesn't just keep getting pushed back kind of throughout the year. I haven't been here for a super long time, so I don't know how staff workload gets in the winter. I know previously it has slowed down. So, you know, we could maybe do by, you know, January, February, or March. I would pick one though.
So first quarter of 2022? Okay, you're good with that, Councillor? Okay, do we have a seconder? Or you seconded, thank you, Councillor Holmes. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, I'm wondering how we got to the point of voting on a resolution for a code of conduct on council when I was prepared to put forward a motion that was in the agenda for the agenda topic.
This, the agenda topic, the motion that's there, is something that we still have to discuss, bring onto the floor. But this is following up on my question of council, and any of us have the right to do that. And Councillor Van Elfen brought forward the motion. It's not negating the motion you were going to bring forward. It's simply a different motion that has to do with a different matter. So I'll come back to you, Councillor Barkwell.
Well, it seems rather irregular, but that's the way things have gone.
Well, I'll defer to our corporate officer. Is that irregular for a motion to come onto the floor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wouldn't say that it was irregular because the first motion wasn't technically brought on the floor, so it wasn't therefore considered. It could be done either way. I wouldn't say it's irregular, maybe not common, but I wouldn't say it was wrong.
Madam Mayor, why wasn't this on the agenda, this topic and the proposed motion?
It wasn't on the agenda because I asked the question of council during this meeting. Would you prefer that I brought it forward as a notice of motion? It wasn't I just wanted to get a pulse of council on whether this would be something that could be considered or not.
I think that would be have been a more appropriate procedure when we have an agenda item and a councillor or a mayor then proposes some entirely different motion. It just doesn't, we just can't operate that way.
As I said before, Councillor Barkwell, I am not, this is not overriding the motion that you were going to bring forward. This is an additional motion.
I never said it was overriding, and we will get to the motion that was put on the floor. Well, it wasn't really put on the floor for a vote. It was brought up for discussion, and we're at the questions part, and I'm sure we'll get to it. It's that this is an additional agenda item out of the blue, and it just isn't the way we should operate. That's all. I'll vote for the motion, but you know, for future, I think we should approach it differently.
Well, as we've heard earlier today, I'm not going to argue with you, but I don't look at this as a different agenda item. It's a separate motion on the same agenda item. Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Carlson.
I just want to comment that I think that having a code of some sort at the staff level makes sense, and that's a really good reason to discuss it at the council level. So I do believe they are connected, but we haven't had that conversation around the council table yet, so I look forward to that in the new year.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, Councillor Van Elfen.
Has the resolution been put on the table, Madam Mayor? If not, I would like to put the resolution forward.
Yes, you have, and Councillor Holmes has seconded.
Here we go.
Is there a further discussion item? Okay. Anyone else? All in favor? And I don't see anyone opposed, so that carries. Councillor Barkwell.
I move that the report titled Code of Ethics for Employees of the District of Summerland from the Chief Administrative Officer be received for information.
Seconder, Councillor Traynor. Any further discussion on this? All in favor? Okay, none opposed on that either. Okay, it's 2:51, 2:52. Let's take a break until 3 o'clock. you. Okay, so we'll carry on with item 7.3, BC Restart Plan, council meetings. And this is for Kendra.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in accordance with the current public health orders and guidelines, including the recent introduction of the regulations for the Interior Health Region introduced on August 20th, staff have been preparing for the reopening of council chambers to welcome back members of the public in person as the province of British Columbia moves forward with the BC Restart Plan. Under the current public health orders and legislation, council meetings may still be held without in-person public attendance, but must still enable the public to hear or watch and hear the portion of the meeting that is open to the public until September 28th, 2021. Following the expiration of Order M192, the district will be required to allow for members of the public to attend in person while adhering to all health orders and guidance. Members of the public that wish to participate electronically may still do so, as council meetings will be convened in person with public electronic participation via the Zoom platform or live streamed. Initiatives that will be implemented when welcoming the public back to protect the public, district staff, and council from the COVID-19 transmission will include masks. So masks will be required to all those in attendance at the council meeting, committee meeting, or public hearing, unless otherwise directed by current public health orders. Hand sanitation stations will be set up prior to entering and leaving council chambers, and as well as prior to coming up to the microphone to speak and before sitting down. Signage will still be put up encouraging those who are feeling unwell or displaying symptoms of COVID-19 to stay home. There will be a limited capacity in council chambers. Staff are very cognizant of the small amount of space we have. Staff are recommending that the public be welcomed back to council chambers in person at the October 12th, 2021 council meeting sessions. However, electronic provisions will still be available to those who wish to attend electronically. Committee meetings may be held in person with the electronic participation provisions beginning September 29th. Staff will be continually monitoring public health orders and guidance to ensure the most up-to-date regulations are adhered to when conducting meetings and welcoming back the public. Further to welcoming back members of the public to council chambers, local governments will begin to amend their council procedure bylaw to include provisions to allow for electronic meetings following the expiration of Order M192. It is the recommendation of staff that these amendments to the bylaw be brought back at the October 12th council meeting to be considered by council. And while the council procedure bylaw will give the authority for a local government to host an electronic council meeting, staff are further recommending that an electronic meeting policy be drafted to supplement and support the amendments to the bylaw to contain more details about electronic meeting processes and procedures.
Thank you, Kendra. Any questions for Kendra on this? Ever moving guidelines? Okay. Oh, Councillor Holmes, thank you.
Yeah, just that, I don't know if we should actually commit to specific dates, like for welcoming the public back and that sort of thing, because we don't know, things can change. I think we can maybe have that as an objective. That's our goal, but I think we really have to look at this meeting by meeting and of how much we open up, because in just the last week, holy jeez. And then the other thing too is, so as it was announced today, the province is bringing in the proof of vaccination for going to public events, attending movie theaters and restaurants and all that sort of thing. And so, maybe that's something we'll want to look at too, is you have to show your proof of vaccination to come in here.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes, through the mayor. So while I do in theory agree with not committing us to a date, we, after September 28th, we have to, in accordance with legislation, begin to welcome back the members of the public to council meetings. We aren't able to keep them closed any further. It could potentially change. There's always that potential. We are unsure. I haven't looked too much into the council passport requirements on a brief, quick scan of the news in our break. It did look like they were being required for weddings and kind of those indoor organized gatherings. I could see it being a requirement for council meetings. However, at the time of drafting this report, that information wasn't available. And if it is something that we do need to consider, we are actively monitoring it, and that will be something that will be implemented in further.
Okay. If there are no further questions, could someone bring forward the motion? Councillor Van Elfen, I'll have you read it. It goes, there's more than just receiving. Oh. Yes, Councillor Patton, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To receive an update on BC's restart plan, the reopening for it in-person attendance at council meeting.
Excuse me just a sec. That is what shows in the agenda, but in the staff report, yes, that's where the
You know what?
motion
I'll have
is.
to use somebody else's because mine is blank.
Oh, I had that problem too. Councillor Carlson, third time's the charm.
Would you like me to read all four?
Yes, please.
Okay. The council received the BC Restart Plan Council Meetings Report from the corporate officer dated August 23rd, 2021 for information. The council directs staff to proceed with welcoming members of the public back to council chambers for the October 12th, 2021 council meetings and public hearings with the initiatives described in this report and in accordance with current public health orders and guidelines. 3, the council directs staff report back with amendments to the council procedure bylaw number 2018-35 no later than October 12th, 2021. And 4, that council directs staff to draft an electronic meeting policy to accompany the council procedure bylaw number 2018-35.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen, for seconding that. Councillor Barkwell.
Sorry, I just had a question about the timing and whether these are, and I guess I would partly depend on whether it's a requirement, but if we come back with changes to our procedure bylaw for our October 12th meeting, should these procedures, or are these new procedures required, or is it just something we're going to do? So if they are required, wouldn't they be required for the October 12th meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell, through the mayor. So the amendments to the procedure bylaw will allow for fully electronic meetings. So no in-person, council would not be in person. Everyone in attendance would be participating electronically. Currently, the legislation in the community charter states that only special meetings can be held that way. So the amendment to the procedure bylaw will be to allow for a fully electronic meeting, whereas electronic participation, so having some members of council on Zoom, some in person, the meeting is convened in person, having members of the public, that's considered electronic participation, and that will still be allowed. So after September 29th, we can still continue with our current practice. It's just in the event that council would like to hold a fully electronic meeting, we wouldn't be allowed to do so without the procedure bylaw being amended.
Yeah, I see, I understand. We won't be able to rely on the provincial order. We'd have to have our own procedure. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. Any further questions or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. Thank you. 8.1 Southern Interior Bylaw Notice Dispute Adjudication Registry Agreement Bylaw Amendment 2021 Agreement Bylaw number 2021-032. This also is for our corporate officer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So bylaw number 2021-032 received first, second, and third reading at the August 9th, 2021 council meeting, and it is now ready for adoption. It is the recommendation of staff that bylaw number 2021-032 be adopted.
Thank you. Could I have someone, Councillor Carlson?
I will move that the Southern Interior Bylaw Notice Dispute Adjudication Registry Agreement Bylaw Amendment 2021 Agreement Bylaw number 2021-032 be adopted.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Van Elfen. Any further discussion on this before we adopt it? All in favor? And none opposed. Thank you. All right, so we're on to our second public or media comment period. Is there anybody in the wings?
So again, we have no registered members to speak, and I do not see any members of the public online.
Okay, thank you. So could someone bring forward a resolution to close the meeting to the public? Councillor Van Elfen, seconded by Councillor Holmes. All in favor?